Welcome to the E-Show with Neil Ravin. Founded in 2013, the EHL has become the college placement leader on the East Coast. Sit back and learn more about the next step in your junior hockey career.
Welcome to the E-Show, presented by the Penalty Box Foundation. The Foundation's mission centers around their daily motto, we take care of our own, as they help out all of those within the hockey community who've experienced a catastrophic event. Learn more at penaltyboxfoundation.org. What's up? My name is Neil Ravin, and this is episode number 155 of the E-Show. On this week's episode, we keep streaking towards March, following the trade and free agent signing deadline. Starting things off in the weekly rundown, this week's division-by-division breakdown focuses on the battle for key points down the stretch. Further along, inside the E-Crew Fantasy Challenge, Team HNIB is coming off another big week as they continue to close the gap on Team OG. Then, wrapping things up in our What to Watch For segment, we highlight some of those upcoming matchups where key points are on the line. This week's episode is brought to you by Hockey Tech, the developers for the new EHL app, available now in both Apple and Google stores. And with that, let's bring in this week's E-Crew. Just three of us this week, Anthony and Jeff, but it does not take away from how busy and hectic things are, guys. We are recording this on, we got to come up with a new word for this day. I can't call it trade and free agent deadline day. Like that's just too long. It's almost like it's
roster freeze day.
Well, it's not totally roster freeze day because every organization that has EHL and EHLP can still make moves for the next 2 weeks. So it's like roster half freeze day. But that's it.
Roster
defrost.
Well, roster defrost.
Roster defrost. Acquisitions no more.
Yes, new player deadline. So today is the last day. You know, we're recording this in the afternoon on Wednesday the 15th. At midnight tonight, you will not see any other new names appear in the league. It's kind of the way that we're getting at this thing. Because, like I said, if you move a player back and forth, EHL or EHLP, they've already been here for the most part, right? So today is the last day for you to bring in somebody new, and we got some family ties that we have to get to because there are two new players coming in with family ties, and we'll talk about them right now in the weekly rundown.
It's time for the E-Crew's Weekly Rundown.
The E-Show Weekly Rundown is brought to you by the Junior Hockey Podcast, your home for junior hockey news, knowledge, and nonsense. Check them out at tjhpodcast.com.
So, Jeff, which one do you want to talk about first? There was one that got you really excited earlier in text.
Yeah, because I just met the whole family. I met Grandma, I met the brother's wife of one, Mark Catron. And they said I was one of the only broadcasters that says his name correctly. He's been with the Junior Bruins and the USPHL the last couple of years, and they were like, oh, my God, you're the only one that gets it right. I go, well, let me ask you this. Is he related to Mark Catron? And their faces all dropped, and they said, and Grandma was like, that's my son. And then his brother, I forget his name, I think Tim, was like, yeah, that's my brother. He's like, you know my brother? And I was like, yeah, I've worked with Mark for a number of years with the Philadelphia Low Flyers in the EHL, and they were all, that was really cool to meet them. So welcome, Aaron Catron, ?
Yes, welcome, Aaron Catron. You know what's funny, Jeff? When you talk about pronouncing Mark's name, you know, the three of us have never had an issue with it, right? But How many times do you hear someone call him like Cantron, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Like, they said people have called him like Catamaran, and like they add letters and stuff where it's just like,
well, so
they were telling me, they're like, yeah, Cataron.
All right, well, Jeff, let's see how
Catron's a big one.
Well, let's see how much older we are, you and I, than Anthony here, right? So,
boy.
Well, because
get your walker out of the way.
Well, the point I'm trying to make is everyone always says, I always hear Cantron, and I'm like, there's no additional N in front of that first T, right? But what's the one thing that you may think of also when you hear Cantron, Jeff?
Scantron?
Scantron. Do you ever have to use a Scantron, Anthony? Okay, we're not that much older then. Okay, when you have to literally punch the holes in or circle the holes completely, I hate it, right?
Don't completely, Neil, or else if you put it in the machine and you don't do it completely, you may still get a wrong answer.
Yeah. So,
those are a pain in the you-know-what.
Oh. Yes. In a number of years, I will be making sure that my newborn Chase understands just how hard a Scantron was.
or my favorite is when you have to erase the answer if you decide to switch answers, and they tell you to erase it completely. But I just finished putting like maximum pressure on my pencil to really like darken the answer, and then I have to erase it, and it's like, is that enough, or is it going to interpret it as two different answers? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. So Mark,
totally agree,
Mark Catron, when people mispronounce your name, sometimes we think of Mark Scantron. But anyways,
Scantron.
That'd be a great nickname for him.
It would be. It would be.
If the Philadelphia Little Flyers are able to get back to the EHL Frozen Finals, when I do the PA announcements and name the coaching staff, I'll make sure I do not say Mark Scantron. But it might pop into my head. It might pop into my head for a quick second.
You know what though? Out of all the coaches, I think he would get the biggest laugh out of that.
He would.
Yeah, he would.
He would.
He would definitely come up to me like, "All right, Jeff, what was that? That was, good joke. Thanks." That's awesome, though. Welcome, Aaron. Welcome to the family, man. And the other one, Neil. Let's get to the. I do know the other one. We were texting about this earlier.
Welcome back to the EHL, Robert Martinello, Mario's son,
wow.
the owner of the New Hampshire Avalanche. Crazy. You just don't realize how much time passes, right? Like, that was the 2020-21 season.
Well, and he was actually one of our youngest players that year, wasn't he?
100%.
17-year-old defenseman?
He was. Yeah. I would think you're right. 17 years old, because he's only an 03, right? And remember, his season ended that year because of a dislocated shoulder or something like that. Yeah. And that was the year that the Avalanche had the best record, after losing in the playoffs. So they still went to the finals via an at-large. And you wonder if Robert had got a chance to play in a few more playoff games. I mean, Jeff, that was still to this day one of the craziest championship games ever between them and the Rangers down in Westchester. So much happened that year, right?
Ending in overtime, you're exactly right, Neil. Defenseman of Robert's caliber, you think he could have made a difference? Maybe, as far as defensive positioning, if he's out there on that ice. And I don't know if I even want to bring it up. Offsides? Question mark. Was it offsides? Was it not offsides? He's a heck of a kid too. He's really well spoken. I always talk to him, even when he was over playing for a good friend of Chris Sorella's and Mario's, Tim Kirkostas last year, and he had another tough injury that kept him out. I think it was his wrist or something too. The kid plays hard. He's young. He's tall. He's got a good frame. He's a good player. He's just had kind of a bad batch of bad luck, if you will, with injuries. But yeah, I think he absolutely would have made a difference on that COVID year at-large team for sure. So I think New Hampshire is happy to definitely have him back to the stretch run. Not that they, that's just scary, isn't it, Neil and Anthony, that team, as good as they are, is now adding a defenseman like Robert Martinello to it. Like, holy smokes, that's
Yeah, and
I don't know if they truly need him. I said that to you earlier. I don't know if they truly need him, but it won't hurt, right?
No, it definitely doesn't hurt, and it's funny for me. Maybe it's not funny for Chris, and maybe okay. Let me start by saying I don't believe in jinxes, right? I just don't. Like, if there's a shutout going on, I yell out the word shutout. Like, if there's a no-hitter going on, we're gonna talk about how there's a no-hitter going on. When the Avalanche are on the verge of clinching the regular season championship, I get the trophy all set, ready to go with New Hampshire Avalanche on the trophy, right?
Spartans are 7 points away from them. I don't know.
Jeff, you're on your phone now. Anthony can see it. That says New Hampshire Avalanche right there, 22-23. Okay, I did this after last week's episode of the podcast. We talked about it on last week's episode of the podcast about how they were just a matter of points away. Yeah. They proceeded to lose the first two games after last week's episode of the podcast. They beat the Wizards yesterday. I will be in Hookset tomorrow with Joe with this trophy because they are 2 points away. Like, truthfully, it comes down to this. The Spartans would have to win out. The Spartans have 4 games left. They'd have to win all 4 games that are left. And they'd
I
have
think
to
Coach Strider and the boys hurt us last week. They won a couple of big games. Beat Rhode Island, beat the Wolves.
100%.
Caves.
And 2 of those games are against the Avalanche, right? And so they really need all 8 points.
Both those games.
Right? But they need them
they have to win both those games, too.
In regulation, too, right? They both can't finish with 68 points because the Avalanche could still have the tiebreaker then. So maybe, was this premature? It could have been. All right? I will admit that, right? But the Avalanche...
Has Uncle Chris called you yet? Yelled at you?
After this podcast, you never know, right? But, like, he really needs at least 1 more point, if not 2, in his final 4 games. I think that I... knock on wood, dodge the bullet, but it's not done yet, and I will acknowledge that out loud here right now. But Anthony's looking at it.
All I want to say, Neil,
is say New Hampshire Avalanche right there.
But next time Uncle Chris comes over to visit his nephew Chase, be careful with Chris holding Chase, all right? Just want to say that while Jinx is going on. Maybe just make sure you and Vicky are within arm's length, you know?
Yes.
I'm just kidding. But
I love to see Brett Strider go into the locker room and just say, like, you hear the podcast? The media is telling us that the Avalanche already have it.
So the Avalanche...
I think one of the first guys he went to was Eddie Mulligan, who lit it up and was a player of the week last week. He was like, hey, boys. Commissioner Rabbit says we're done in the north. I think we have some games left, and I don't think we're done. Are we done? Eddie Mulligan says,
that's a great
no,
Strider
Coach,
impression.
we're not.
Yes.
Here's a hat trick, Coach. Here we go. 5 goals against Rhode Island, 5 goals against the Wolves. Let's stick it to the E crew.
So the Avalanche are playing the Railers the day that we drop this podcast. So you can make the case the Railers have already clinched their division. So are they going to be playing as hard as they could? It's tough to say because there is still something to play for in that you want to have the highest point total you can in case you do make it to Providence, right? Because you want to have at least the last change in Providence, right? So the Avalanche play the Railers the day that this podcast drops. Like I said, if they win that game while I'm there with the trophy, everything's off the hook. I dodged the bullet, right? But then if it doesn't end there, on Tuesday, the Avalanche play the Wolves up in Laconia, and then next week, Thursday, Friday, a home-and-home series with the Spartans. So again, just so everyone knows, the Avalanche have to lose all 4 games. Is it possible? Yes. Is it also possible that the Spartans will win all 4 of theirs? So just to tell you their schedule, including those 2 with the Avalanche, they also have matchups against the Seahawks and the Wolves. So it's
tough games.
It's tough to say, right? Because the Wolves are still in a way playing for something too. Because the Lumberjacks just wrapped up a victory over the Seahawks Hockey Club, right? So it looks like the Lumberjacks are probably going to be the 4 seed in that division, but it's not guaranteed yet either.
Yeah, 46 points. Team in front of them, 53, the Wolves. Yeah, no, not guaranteed. Games played are very even, 2 Wolves at 42, Lumberjacks at 41. So 4 games left for the Wolves, 5 games left for the Lumberjacks.
Wait, no, shouldn't it be 48 now? Because I don't think the Lumberjacks win went through yet.
We're doing things live right now, Anthony. And Anthony, guess what? Let me put that through right now and see if it updates.
Refresh. I'm hitting refresh.
Yeah, there it is. 24, 18-0. Lumberjacks.
There you go. Anthony's right.
Points.
So they're only 5 points behind the Wolves. So
and every team in the North with 42 games played.
100%, right? And this is where it gets interesting.
Oh, mine updated too. Yay!
The Wolves. So the point is, the Wolves, whether they're playing the Avs or they're playing the Spartans, they're still playing for something too. Because do you want to be the 4 seed or do you want to be the 3 seed? This is now getting us into the matchups. And we could talk more about this with each division. Who do you want to play? If you're the Avs for game 2, do you want to go to Burlington, Vermont for a day trip? Or
you want to go Laconia?
Laconia for a day trip, right?
I'd say Laconia if I was Chris, probably, right?
It's closer, right? But you've had more
hard barn to play in, though.
You've had better success in Vermont, right? So this is not the only division, of course, that's like this, but it's where we're starting because number 1 and number 2 in that division are also number 1 and number 2 in the league. And that's why we've talked so much about the regular season championship trophy. And all 4 of those teams are still playing for something right now. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that all shakes out. Quietly, as we always like to say, the Seacoast Spartans have won 5 straight games. And they've looked.
Yeah, I think Eddie Mulligan's been a huge difference maker for them. Yep. That's what an addition that was.
And I think that also, I mean, not to get too much into the award side of things, because that's coming here in the next few weeks too, but William Prey has kind of said, like, hey, that MVP award, that's mine. These last few games, right? So
he's kind of said that since like week 1, hasn't he?
Well, true, but I think he's kind of like grabbed it a little bit in the last few weeks. Recently committed to Plymouth State University, so congratulations to him. They actually also had Carson Whitman commit last night too. The commitments are flooding in right now. So if you
check out our Instagram page, is just full of guys, the awesome pictures with the commitment graphics. So it's just littered with them.
I just lined up my schedule for Friday, and my hope is to post 8 of them on Friday, because I'm just trying to get caught up. And like right now it's like, all right, just dodge bullets here and then get to the podcast and then focus on commitments. My goal Friday, Jeff, you know how like OCD I am. I'm hoping I can post a commitment every hour on Friday, 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 12 p.m. the whole day, because they're just racking up right now. So
yeah, it's commitment season. Like you said, it's the end of the year. It's getting towards the end of the college years for these teams. So yeah, it's time to where these teams are. Yeah, they're still getting playoffs. They have to, because there's guys that are seniors that are going out the door. They got to get replaced.
For sure. We mentioned the Railers in that part of the conversation as well. Railers have officially clinched the number 1 seed in the Central Division. I didn't jinx that one either, I guess you could say. They had that one kind of in control, though, for the last month or so. And it's been interesting to watch those teams behind them just continue to jockey back and forth, if you will. It's kind of interesting now that when you look at the games played in comparison to the point totals now, the team with the highest games played and the lowest point total is sitting there in 5th place, and then you kind of work your way up from there. So maybe, just maybe, where these teams are listed is where they're going to finish. Chiefs 2, Rhode Island 3, Rough Riders 4, Apple Core 5, but a number of games left for each team still. And it could come down to the final weekend of the season for that division. I mean, that's the way it feels like, at least.
For the Central, you're saying?
For the Central, yes.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, the last weekend of the season, there is a 2-game set, Apple Core at Rhode Island, March 4th and 5th.
Yeah.
What if that set determines which one of those teams is in the play-in game and which one's in the 2-3 matchup, right? Like that's going to be very interesting to see how that shakes out. But that's cross off the North, cross off the Central. I'm skipping a little bit fast this week because we got to talk about some streaks in the EHLP. But that gets us to the East next. And as you always know, we record this on Wednesday. What a swing of events this past Friday/Saturday for the Express Hockey Club, right?
Yeah.
You begin the week kind of feeling a little bit down after having been swept by the Rangers 2 weekends ago, and having your record against the Rangers drop to 0-4, and now the Rangers continue to just be breathing down your neck for that top spot. And then Friday, the Express hosts the Warriors, who are 10-5 in their last 15 games. Let's get that out there right now so everyone can hear that too. They've been playing very well, but they got shut out by the Warriors on Friday 2-0, right? And I'm sure the mood in the locker room for the Express after losing that one was like, man, guys, we had this division like in the palm of our hand, right? And you go to bed Friday night thinking, oh, great, now I got the Avalanche coming to town on Saturday. But on Saturday night, the Express beat the Avalanche 4-3, while the Rangers lose to Vermont 4-2 up in Burlington. That was a mega swing at the top of the East Division standings, right?
Yeah. And I know Tyler Rigo's not on the air this week with us, but he had texted us in our group meet chat about he was feeling that win against the Avalanche.
It was the late night
later,
text where he just said, "I'm still amped about this win."
Yeah.
And I know that feeling where you can tell that's just one of the wins, or the best wins of the season.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, and like we said, the Express have had trouble scoring goals. To score 4 goals against the Avalanche, that's another. And against Shane Paremba, their top guy, they put 39 shots on Paremba and to score 4 times. They got 4 goals from 4 different goal scorers. You got Brand, you got Agnello, Rebroker, Fallman. So you got some defensemen and forwards. That's a nice combination for Nick Coda. And I'm sure the guys.
Game for Bobby Rebroker.
Yeah, he's been a nice addition for Coach Coda since they got him. Absolutely. It's those acquisitions. Like we said, it's the acquisition episode, right? And yeah, Rebroker's up to 9 points in 7 games. I hear nothing but great things about my old South Shore King friend, Nolan McDonough. He's been really well liked. I got to hang out with Justin Squitieri in person the other day in Florida. And McDonough is unbelievable. The way the kid skates, and he looks very fast. And he's almost a point per game player since joining the Express. 7 points in 8 games for him, 3 goals, 4 assists. He's done a little bit of everything. So, yeah, the Express are they got a lot of coal in their engine. They're moving.
They tacked on a win against the Connecticut Chiefs.
And I think that's what's getting interesting, Anthony, is like now we're at the point in the season where all the opponents are watching each other, hoping for help, right? The Rangers watched that game today, hoping for a Chiefs win. And it's not like the Chiefs weren't playing for anything, because like we just mentioned, they're fighting to make sure that they can be at least the 2 seed in their division. But that win for the Express evens up them and the Rangers in game count. And even despite the fact that the Rangers own the tiebreaker over the Express, they own a 3-point advantage. So clearly the destiny, they control it once again on their way down the stretch with 6 games remaining. As long as they can, take care of business in, I would say, at least half of those games, they're going to be the number 1 seed in their division going into the postseason.
Yeah, for sure. And before we leave the East, can we please talk about the Valley Junior Warriors? All 3 of us get a text the other day from one Ryan McGrath. 10-4, ... no love. We're all like, huh? And it was funny because I thought the same thing, Anthony. I thought he was saying 10-4, like 10-4.
No, I thought he was
like, what are you saying, Coach?
A 10-4 win. And I'm looking at the daily scoreboard.
I thought he meant 10-4.
I'm like, why they didn't have a 10-4 win recently?
Yeah, I actually thought at first what Jeff is thinking, like Roger that 10-4 over now. Right. I was like, did we do something? Did one of us?
The way he said 10-4, no love, like, 10-4, got it, no love, got it. Like, you still like us, but I just did a whole post on them in my social media back in our last showcase. I told Ryan about it. We've been dribbling them in each week, and I mean, all right, so let's talk about their week. They lost to the Spartans and lost to Rhode Island, so I guess they got a couple of gut checks.
Oh man, cold-blooded.
Yeah, and now Jeff's face has been printed out on a bulletin board and posted in the Valley Junior Warriors locker room.
I don't know if I ever mentioned this on the podcast, but I'm walking along the catwalk at Jersey Shore Arena because there's a catwalk by where the broadcast booth is, where some of the locker rooms are. And there's a staircase where you go up. And I looked under the staircase from the catwalk, and I saw a Valley Junior Warriors bag just sitting there.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
I don't know how
it got there. I remember you sent
us
a text of that, and I was like, what is that? They're everywhere, Anthony. They are everywhere. But all jokes aside, I mean, going back to the standings and stuff too, Neil and Anthony, the Warriors are now in they've gotten hot. They've done well. They're only 2 points behind the Wizards for that 4th spot. So they're trying. It looks like they're still going to be in the play-in game, though, because the Seahawks are at 44 points, same amount of games as the Warriors. That's an 8-point lead. That's with 4 games left for each of them. That's going to be kind of hard to get up to 3rd. But you want to host a play-in game now if you're the Warriors. But they're up to 42 games, and the Wizards are at 39. So now the Wizards have a little bit more. They're 2 points up, and they have 3 games in hand. So they got a little bit more, like the Express do. They got a little more house money to be playing with now than I think the Warriors do. The Warriors, I think that streak has been great, but I think the first half might be, they're kind of probably maybe looking back. I know Ryan and Coach Claw aren't like that. They don't kind of dwell on previous losses, but if I was them, I'd be up looking at like, what if we won this game in overtime, or pulled this one out, because they've had a lot of close. Some of their losses have been by 1 goal, and they've played really well against the brass of the league. So credit to them I was just joking, Ryan, just joking, Claw. Love you both about your 5-1 losses this week. But, credit to them that they've made it very interesting, because they were miles away from everybody in that division for a long time, and now they're within reach. So
and you bring up the Wizards, who have, I don't want to say quietly, but they've lost 5 straight, but they've only played 39. So they still, seeing the Seahawks lose up in Vermont today, they could still look at that like, hey, we can right this ship. We can climb our way out of that play-in game as well. And then you're looking at a play-in game rematch, if you will, from a year ago, which was Seahawks versus Warriors.
Oh, Seahawks Warriors. That's right.
Yep. And before we jump to the South, I want to mention a congratulations to Corey Felitti and his wife for the birth of their second child. Yes, Corey and I were actually kind of laughing because the way this all played out, obviously this is our first for Vicky and I, but Vicky's due date was actually February 17th. Corey's wife was due back on the 10th, but Vicky went first, then Corey's wife went. But Corey said that I should do what him and his wife did next time, where they actually did not know the gender of their newborn until she came out.
The day of? Oh
wow.
That's stressful. So, I don't think I want to do that.
Well, I was like, Corey, because Corey, like me, the firstborn was a son. He goes, so you're kind of hoping for a girl to even it out after that, but we wanted to just see what happened. I was like, Corey, I will cross the bridge on the second child when I feel like it. Like we are
still heavily in the first.
We are 10 days in right now. So, but I want to make sure we congratulate him and his family. That's awesome. And
congrats, Coach.
Maybe that will lead to
a great dude.
Maybe that will lead to a little stretch here for his team down the final stretch here and climbing out of that last spot. But that gets us to.
And you said it's a girl, Neil?
It's a girl, yes, Camden.
Oh, good. There you go. Boom. You got the 1-1, Corey. It's 1-1 and done now.
Yes, exactly. So then we wrap things up in the South, which, every division has their own compelling picture to it. But the Ducks and 87s are locked up at 53 points each. And it's hard to not think about February 23rd and February 28th. When they play each other at Menin both times. Like the other games, the other games outside of that are important, of course, because you need those points. But how can you not think about those 2 games, Anthony? Like it's going to come down to those 2 games.
I had brought it up.
Have 3 games left.
Yeah,
4 games left.
I brought it up with Chris in one of the Buff and Blue pregame shows that we always have on Instagram Live before our broadcast. That both teams are just controlling their own destiny right now. Get as many points as you can leading into that 2-game set between the 87s and Ducks. And then whoever can get the better of those 2 games could very well win the division. And the Ducks are playing some of their best hockey right now. They're on a 5-game point streak. They're 4-0-1 in those 5 games. The 87s were really struggling with their offense. They had a 4-game losing streak. They just, for the first 2 times this season, they scored more than 5 goals. They beat the Rough Riders 6-1, and then on home ice they beat Apple Core 7-1. So it looks like their offense is clicking right now, and they're sort of looking like
woken up with the goal scoring for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Charles Lavoie getting Player of the Week. You have guys like Landon Adams. He scored a really pretty goal against the Rough Riders, toe dragged around a defender. I thought that was probably one of their highlights. Their power play's been clicking, 5 power play goals in the last 2 games. But yeah, it's been fun to see. And I think that with the 87s and Ducks playing the way they are, you're right, Neil. You really have to kind of look at those 2 games and circle them on your calendar. And I'm expecting them to be great games. Road team has won every time they faced so far this season.
And the other 2 that New Jersey have are tough too. Little Flyers in Maryland. So you got Little Flyers, Maryland, and 2 against the Ducks. Ducks have 2 against the 87s and 1 against Philly Hockey Club.
And speaking of Philadelphia Hockey Club, they've won their last 3 games, and now they're only a point behind the Little Flyers and Team Maryland.
It's crazy. And looking at those schedules, because I wanted to talk about that next, Anthony, two of those teams are going to end up in the play-in game, right? I think we can make the conclusion that the South is so even that no one's going to be able to win out, and then the 87s and ProTech can't lose out where the 2-horse versus 3-horse race is going to change, right? The two guys at the top are going to keep battling out for 1, 2. The 3 at the bottom are going to keep battling out for 3, and then whoever is below them is 4 and 5. What's so interesting about it, as Anthony mentioned, Maryland and the Little Flyers each have 43 points, and they each have a predominantly home schedule left. Maryland has 4 games left. They play at the 87s and then home, Applecore, Philly Hockey Club, right? Yep. Then the Little Flyers have 6 games left, all at home.
Oh,
87s, Philly Hockey Club
family
twice.
Ties coming in the door.
Yes.
Aaron Catron, here he comes to save his uncle.
Philly Hockey Club twice, Rough Riders, and then Chiefs twice. And then Philly Hockey Club, who Anthony mentioned, has won 3 straight games. They play the Rough Riders the day we drop this podcast, and then they finish the season on the road at Ducks, at Little Flyers, at Maryland. Is there any stock that we have to put in down the stretch for the teams that get to play at home versus the teams that play it's not plural, it's team that's playing on the road?
I mean,
well,
I've noticed. You first, Jeff.
Oh no, you can go, Anthony. That's fine.
I was going to say, especially in the South Division, I feel like a lot of these teams have played better on the road. So I'm not sure if it's necessarily home ice versus playing on the road. I just think it's whatever team is playing hot right now. Like, it was Jeff Perot and Doug Shea who were both telling me that we don't talk about PHC enough. They got Ethan Byrne back. Justin Nakagawa has been playing great as of usual, and their scoring is just connecting right now. And I think PHC, Neil, just going by memory, I think the schedule you were rattling off, I feel like PHC might have one of the tougher schedules ahead. They're playing against Team Maryland, Little Flyers, whereas whereas the Little Flyers, they're playing the the Connecticut Rough Riders, and the Chiefs are I don't know if that was Maryland too, but
those central teams, Anthony, are still playing for something also.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I don't mean this as a slight, by the way. And
of course.
Just as a quick digression, too, because when I was talking on one of the broadcasts about the 87s not scoring as much goals, and I was talking about how the last place teams now are way better than the last place teams that we've seen in years past. So I think it just shows how much more parity there is. But while PHC has a tougher schedule, I just think the way they're playing, I think they can not only survive the schedule, but maybe make a jump where at the very least they could get home ice for a play-in game.
For sure.
And maybe even get out of the play-in game.
Yeah.
I'm even more glad I let you go first, Anthony, because real quick, if you hit our new fancy tab on the easternhockeyleague.org, hit home, and you are absolutely right. As far you want to hear the South records at home, it was PLF that has 6 games of home left, right, Neil?
Yes.
All right, so let's answer that question for you. Their record at home this year, 5 wins, 10 regulation losses, 1 overtime loss, 1 shootout loss. They have the worst home record in the league, actually. Going in a ascending order, Team Maryland is 9-8-3-0 at home. 87s are 10-10-2-0 at home. ProTech is 11-9-0-0 at home. Philly Hockey Club is one of the best home teams in the league. They're 15-5-1-1.
Actually, Jeff, one thing I would add is that those numbers may be a little skewed because that also includes showcase games.
Gotcha.
True.
Okay.
True.
Yeah, if they are the home team.
But only
but there's only so many
12 showcase games each, so maybe you take away I don't know 2 or 3.
I was gonna say because I usually when I make my spotting charts, I always write down the home and away records, but when I do that, I only count games on their home ice.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I think there's definitely, like to Neil's question though, is home ice a big deal? I don't know if Philly Little Flyers want to be playing as much at home. They don't play as well at home. They play better on the road. I've seen that. It's weird. Not to digress too much, but one of the teams I worked for this year, or that I worked for a long time, the Bentley Falcons D1, they play really well on the road this year. They do not play well in their nice $40 million barn. It's the weirdest thing. Sometimes, I don't know what it is. I don't know, between juniors and college hockey, whether it's D1, D2, D3, sometimes funky things happen like that. And you can't really explain it, but so I don't know what the issue is with Philly. I think that they would enjoy sleeping in their own beds and playing on their home ice more, but the record hasn't translated that. So yeah, I don't know, Neil. That's an interesting question.
This is going to be interesting for sure.
Neil, I just want to say, Jeff, just the way you said $40 million barn, you almost sounded like a disgruntled dad, as if to say, we gave you college kids a $40 billion barn and you're not grateful enough to win some damn home games.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty good friends with our head coach, Ryan Soderquist, and we talk after every game, and that was one of the things we talked about recently. It's a family show. Can't tell you everything we talk about, but that was one of the things we talked about was why do we squeeze the stick at home in this beautiful place, but then on the road it's like, but it is, all joking aside, there is something to it. Sometimes there's less pressure when you're on the road, believe it or not. You kind of just go in, you're maybe looked at as the underdog per se, and you just kind of play a little looser at home. I don't know. It's an interesting.
That's what happened with the 87s Ducks a couple weeks ago, where the 87s were up 4-1. You know, the Ducks were given a couple of power plays at the very end of the game, and they found a way to claw their way back, and they won in overtime. Where it seemed like, and I think for the 87s at that point, you could tell that a lot of it was mental, where they knew that they struggled at home against Pro Tech. And you could kind of sense the way that they were killing penalties or lack thereof, I should say. And Pro Tech managed to come back from that game. So, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about there, Jeff.
It's just such a stark contrast, real quick, and then we're going to move on. But with the South, like, then click to look at their away records. They're all phenomenal away. Pro Tech's 14-6-3. 87's 14-3-2-1 away from Jersey Shore Arena. Philly Little Flyers 13-5-3-2. Maryland is the one team that's kind of even, a road or home. They're 9-9-1-3. I think their home record was like 9-8. And then Philly Hockey Club, complete opposite. They do not play well on the road. They're 4-13-2 on the road, but they're 15-5 at home. So here's your records talk in the standings, home or away.
And you know what they're all saying, Jeff? And this is more of an off-season conversation, but they're all saying, don't bring up showcases now because away is always away because the showcases are always away, right? So anyways, moving on before we get too heated about that. All right, so we go to the EHLP, where our three division leaders at this current moment have combined to win their last 32 games.
Whew.
What? Adirondack has won 11 straight. I know that it shows that they're tied with Vermont, 53 points. Vermont has played one more game. They have a huge series this weekend, previewing Neil's what to watch for. Adirondack. Anyways,
you love Adirondack. When are you getting an Adirondack jersey from Coach Mikowski?
You tell me, Jeff. I want home, away,
and in the
alternate. Mail? Seriously,
is it in the mail?
The Rangers have won 13 straight. And Anthony, I'm sorry, but because those two streaks they're in double digits. No one's talking about 8 straight for the 87s. Also down south.
I think divisional strength also comes at play, but the 87s have had some really convincing wins against the Pennsylvania Huntsmen. So I think that with those victories, they're really asserting themselves as the division leaders in the Mid-Atlantic.
For sure. And they are getting very close themselves, getting that little Y symbol next to their logo, because the Huntsmen here's where the math comes in, everybody. The Huntsmen have 7 games left for a max of 14 points, which puts them at 58. 87s are at 57. So 87s are darn close to getting that Y next to their name, clinching the number 1 seed in their division. But for those Rangers and Adirondack, you know what's awesome is, like, there are pages on the website that I go to every now and then, and I'm like, does anybody even notice this? Like the all-time records page, right? Which now Adirondack is currently tied for the 5th longest winning streak in EHLP history at 11 games. And they tweeted about it. They included it in the graphic that they posted in the tweet. I was like, that's pretty cool. Somebody noticed.
That is cool.
3 spots ahead of them, I should say. The Rangers have won 13 straight, as we mentioned. So they're both chasing down the 2017-18 Rangers, who won 16 straight. So, Anthony, you won't like this comment, maybe or not. I don't know. But there's the selfish part in my head that's like, what if they both just win every game until Providence? You know what I mean? Like how do you not kind of think about that and like think about like that'd be kind of cool if they like just both ran the table until Providence. They'd obviously have to face off in the round robin before the championship game, but it's like they could be near 20 plus each of them. And it kind of brings me back to flip it over to the EHL. Like the winning streak record in the EHL is ridiculous. And we'll spend a whole episode in the offseason about it just because I feel like it. The Little Flyers won 30 straight games.
30 something.
But in that same season, the Junior Flyers went on a 26 game point streak, right? So in comparing the two, right, it's like those two were on this like crash course to face each other in the finals, right? And I'll piss off 13 other EHLP teams right now if I start saying Adirondack and the Rangers are on a crash course to face each other in the EHLP title game. But like,
yeah, do it. Go to the pod. That's fine.
Okay, whatever. Okay, they're on a crash course. There you go, Jeff. But like,
we're journalists.
Sam Taffel's not going to be happy hearing that.
Yeah. But like,
light them up.
It's
phone calls are coming in.
It's crazy the runs that these two teams are on. I mean, it's not. The stretches that they have left are not easy by any means. Like I mentioned, Adirondacks playing Vermont this weekend. Vermont themselves have not even hit double-digit regulation losses yet, right? So these races, while they're different from the EHL, especially like in the Mid-Atlantic, it doesn't even compare to the South in the EHL, the battles for the seeds. They're just as compelling, though, because you're fighting to avoid playing games. And hoping to at least give yourself 2 games of a best of 3 and then see what happens next, right?
Yeah, I mean, the same thing in the EHLP that you both have mentioned. I know Anthony said the word parity earlier. We've said that word for years, Neil, on the show, but I mean, it's evident in the EHLP too. So it's both the EHL and the EHLP were spoiled with excellent teams in all divisions. There really truly aren't any bad teams, and you're starting to see it with all these playoff races between the EHL, the 19 teams we have over there, and then the 15 teams we have in the P.
Yeah, for sure. Do we go to fantasy now?
Oh yeah, wow! I can't believe we're 47 minutes into this episode already. Wow.
Who's counting?
Time's running out.
Let's jump to the E-Crew Fantasy Challenge.
It's time for the E-Crew Fantasy Challenge.
The E-Crew Fantasy Challenge is presented by BioSteel, the sports drink of the EHL. Use the promo code ESHOW, that's ESHOW, for 25% off when you check out at biosteel.com.
Jeff, every time we start to close the door, we don't actually
reopen.
We don't actually close the door. Like we need to close the door and lock the door and end this thing.
Well, go ahead.
Zamboni door is ajar, Neil.
No, that's fine. Close your doors because we'll just make like the Kool-Aid man go busting into the wall. Oh yeah.
Oh no.
Oh no, what have I done to this beautiful home?
So
yeah, I was looking at that last night, Neil. I was on the page late last night after I flew in, and I did not like to see. It was the first time I got service after being on a cruise out at sea for the last week, and I looked and I'm like, ooh, they're creeping up on 700 points. We're at 771. We're still. I like the century mark plus lead. That's a nice area. Anything less than 100, that can be. I mean, we saw it this week. We're gonna dive into it, but they made up like 20 something points this week. That's what they've been doing a lot lately.
You know what they say, guys? The 100-point lead is the worst lead in fantasy hockey.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of the 2 or 3 goal lead. You're right.
Yes,
Anthony.
exactly.
Yep.
So
sure is.
We'll read off the Team HNIB picks from this past week, but I'm going to skip 2 of them to touch on at the end. So Mattingly Worrell got them a goal and an assist for 5 points. Kenny Maxwell, 2 assists, one of the power play for his own 5 points. Lucas Salas with an assist for 2 points. And then Colin Burke, he actually played very well, despite Team Maryland getting swept by Philly Hockey Club. Still got them 8.2 points. So right there, solid. But Jeff and I were like, we kind of laughed this past week when they were like, oh, we're picking 2 Lumberjacks players from the EHLP Lumberjacks because they're playing 4 games. Those players each got 15 points apiece.
Sure did.
A goal.
And you'll see our picks this week. We're learning from these youngsters.
We are learning. We may be old, but we're still learning. A
We're
goal,
still learning.
4 assists, 3 power play points, and a game winner. That was how Cam Budway got to 15 fantasy points. And then 2 goals, 3 assists, and 3 power play points for Oliver Hertzberg. Honestly, awesome for him with his new team to get off to a great start like that with Vermont for his own 15 points. In total, that's 50.2, which that closed the gap, Jeff, because we only put up 22.2. And really, William Jasmine, 2 points, Cameron Cherry, 2 points, JJ Creighton, 3 points, Noah Webster, 2 points, David Felak, 2.2. If it wasn't for Chase Leclerc getting us 8 assists, that was a terrible week.
Buddy.
That was a terrible week, Jeff.
We'd be, as I like to say, up a creek without a paddle if we didn't have one Chase Leclerc this week. We keep getting these master distributor guys, Neil. Tristan DeIlia's 9 assists last week. Chase Leclerc's 8 assists this week.
Kobe Howitt had 5 assists in between. So really, Jeff, if it wasn't for those 22 assists over these last few weeks, that's 44 points, right? So like, we need to, you and I collectively need to wake up. So
yes, we do. But one thing, if we are competitive, we do not like to lose, and we will put our heads together. We're already starting this week to get a new batch, and we're going to get more even point totals from our players. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Send it out to the universe. We're going to ask all these guys that we're going to have this week, these 6 gentlemen, to help us out. Please. Yes. Thank you.
So. Our picks. We'll start with
without further ado.
We'll start with Lex Friesen, who's on Philly Hockey Club. Been a big part of their 3-game winning streak, hoping that he can keep his scoring touch continue for Philly Hockey Club. Peter Morrow for the Connecticut Rough Riders. I think honestly one of the underrated forwards in the league, kind of almost like a Lucas Baxe this past year, under the shadow of Colin Bella in a way. Like I'd say kind of the same thing. Peter Morrow under the shadow of Dallas D'Amato, if you will. So from the Connecticut Rough Riders, I picked Gavin Bernston, knowing that Jake would be pumped about that pick for us, but also he came up to me once when we met and said, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but I'm a huge fan. And I was like, okay.
He said he's a huge fan of you?
Yeah, he just loves the podcast.
Wow.
Right?
And Jake called him his son, didn't he, in the group?
Yes, which is interesting.
You said my fan?
Yes, which is interesting, Jeff, because people think that Jake is your son. Does that make Gavin Bernston your grandson then?
I mean, I think it's Vera or Rosie Sorella that said to us at the mini showcase back in Hookset earlier this year that, isn't Jefferson your dad, Jake? Yeah, and then since then, Jake is saved in my phone as Jake Basile, parentheses, son. And we call each other son and father. It's great.
I did not know I would meet someone, though, that would be a grandfather in their mid-30s, though, Jeff. So congrats to you.
Yeah, right. 33 years old. I'm a grandpa. This is weird. I don't even have a kid yet, but I'm a grandpa. But I do.
On the back end, we have Adrian Dubrand for the Express. We touched on when we talked about the East Division. Ryan Koshio, who has an assist in 3 straight games. And then we are doubling up EHLP after watching what Team HNIB did this past week. And we're going Charles Healy. Yeah, we're doing Charles Healy. We're going an EHLP goalie and hoping to ride the hot hand of Adirondack in the 2-game series with Vermont. So probably right in the beginning, Jeff, we're conceding the fact that they'll probably play Kean Hodgins 1 game and Healy 1 game. But we're basically going all in on a top 5 bonus win for Charles Healy is the hope that we're going for, right? And maybe
that's
that'll
what
get
we're
us.
doing. We're sending it to the universe.
Maybe that'll get us back on track. But those are our picks for
Put
team mode.
please. I'll see you later.
Glenn's like, I got
That's
you
it.
guys. I got you guys. All right. But team HNIB, who are you going with this week, Anthony?
All right. So first, I'd just like to thank our honorary captain, Mr. Chase Ravin.
Yep.
I think that rookie magic really helped us out there.
He did well.
Now, with the picks, we're going to go with an 87s forward. After the week they had putting up 13 goals in 2 games, why not? Let's go Charles Lavoie. He is on a 5-game point streak, 4-game goal streak, and he has 5 goals in that span. Had a 3-point day against the Connecticut Rough Riders, including 2 goals. We're going to go with him. I don't think he's showing any signs of slowing down. Also at forward, I'm going to go with a player from the EHLP. I'm going to go with Ryan Arendes. I mean, he has 56 points in 35 games. That's just unbelievable. Yep. I think that's pretty much a no-brainer. But another player I'm going with in the EHL up front, Justin Nakagawa. Neil, you were talking about Lex Friesen. I think Nakagawa's also been playing well. Mm-hmm. He is on a 4-game point streak. All of those games have been multi-point performances. His last 2 games against Maryland, he had a goal and an assist in each of those games. Have to go with him. Going to go back to the EHLP on defense with Ryan Sember. He has 28 points in 33 games. He's picked up a couple of assists against Adirondack. I know the Wolves are playing quite a few games this week. Why not go with him? Also on defense, Kieran Chung. He's one of those players where I feel like we've picked him recently, but then when I look back at the fantasy page, we haven't picked him in a while. I don't think either team has. I mean, Chung has been great for the Rough Riders all season long, had a goal in their last game against the Protect Junior Ducks. Going to go with him. Then in goal, we've got Matt Gover. Dropped his last 2 starts, but he's faced 92 shots in his last 2 games. I know the Wizards have a couple of games coming up this week. I think they're playing 3 times. Figured he's going to get the start in at least one of them, maybe 2. So why not go with Cookie Dough Gover?
Recently committed to Mass College of Liberal Arts, so congratulations to him. Awesome to see.
That's awesome.
We take pride in every commitment, but for the multi-year guys who've been here for a couple of seasons at least, who've kind of trusted our process as a league, or trusted their teams, I think those ones it's a little bit even more satisfying just to see those kids make their decisions. So great for him, and that segues us into what to watch for.
Before we wrap things up, here's what to watch for this week in the E-Show.
What to watch for is presented by Hockey TV, the official streaming platform for your EHL and EHLP action throughout the 2022-2023 season.
I will do everyone a favor and not pick Adirondack versus Vermont 2-game series. Okay, I'm not gonna pick it.
Come on.
No, I'm not gonna pick it. Not gonna pick it. I am watching for it, but I'm not gonna pick it. I'm gonna pick Philly Hockey Club versus Philly Little Flyers on Tuesday at noon at Little Flyers, of course, because the Little Flyers have 6 games left, all at Iceworks, and every one of these matchups is critical down the stretch. After Maryland beat the Little Flyers yesterday in a shootout, you just have to think like all these guys are looking at this as like, if we can just get 2 points and they get no points, as opposed to 2 and 1, every point is so critical down this stretch to try and avoid a play-in game, which of course, if you have the chance to at least guarantee yourself 2 games in a best of 3 series, as opposed to just the 1, you're going to love your chances that much more. So Philly Hockey Club versus Philly Little Flyers. That's a huge matchup on Tuesday, the 21st at noon.
I mean, there's just no shortage of good matchups. You can just literally stay on Hockey TV all week from now until next week when we record a new episode. But I mean, just looking at it, Rangers Warriors. There you go, Ryan. You want some love? Here's your love, buddy. And that's a massive game, right? Warriors and Rangers. Warriors trying to get a little closer to the Wizards. They need every point they can. The Rangers need every point that they can get to chase the Express. All 3 times the Warriors and Rangers have met this year, the games have been decided by 1 goal. Rangers have won 2 of those, 4-3 and 2-1, and then the Warriors won the most recent one, 4-3. That's huge. Then you got the 87s of Anthony. I'll choose those for Anthony so he doesn't have to, so he doesn't look like a homer because he is not a homer. Little Flyers 87s, that's at Iceworks. So come on, Philly Little Flyers. Come on, Alo. Come on, Catron. All Catrons, Mark, Aaron. Get that home cooking again. Take down the 87s. And for New Jersey, they need the win. So come on, Hools. They're one of the best away teams in the South. So hopefully they can keep that going. So we'll pick those two, and I'll let Anthony decide what he wants to pick there. But truly no shortage of good games this week, boys.
No, for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like I've got some pretty decent picks. Let's watch out for the Central Division. HC Rhode Island, Connecticut Chiefs. That's on Friday the 17th. Then you've got HC Rhode Island and Connecticut Rough Riders on the February 22nd. That's a Wednesday. I think Apple Core might have some games coming up at some point where all these Central teams are facing off against each other, and it could really shape up those lower seeds in the Central standings. Because, look, I mean, I was actually joking about it with Joey LaChase before the 87's Apple Core game last week, how I was the only one that picked Apple Core. I mean, something tells me that we could potentially see another scenario like that where we might see a team like Rhode Island or the Chiefs, maybe they could give a run, or give the Railers a good run for their money. And I think it starts with some of these matchups coming up. I want to see what this Central Division is made of and see if maybe they can give some pushback to the Railers.
Yeah,
that's a good point, Anthony. You chose the Apple Core of the Railers last year, so maybe HC Rhode Island takes your spot this year as like
perhaps
the underdog.
Applications are open, Jeff. Applications are open for Anthony's bracket pick for the Central Division. That's what he's basically saying.
Get your Scantrons. Get your Scantrons ready.
Get the Scantron out.
Hey, get your Scantrons ready.
Yeah, well, as Jeff mentioned, so many good matchups in both the EHL and the EHLP. As we all mentioned earlier in this podcast, too, by the time you hear this, there's no new players coming in. The organizations that have both EHL and EHLP still have some time to drop players back and forth. That's it. So we're coming down to crunch time here in both divisions, and these races are awesome. We really only have, I guess you can call it 2.5 weeks left. Postseason is literally right around the corner. So do what Jeff said to do. Watch Hockey TV all weekend long.
Do it.
And then we'll check back in with you next week.
Sounds good. See you guys next week.
Thanks for listening to The E-Show. Learn more at easternhockeyleague.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Also, be sure to subscribe and get notified when next week's podcast is released.